Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Real Talk with Ben Ferguson. I'm your host, Ben Ferguson, and we're live right now all over the world with YouTube. I'm happy to say, last podcast, we actually had one person from Sacramento tune in, and, you know, that's better than nothing. But hello, if you're watching on Channel 17 or listening on Spotify, we're glad you're here. This is our third or fourth show, and it's a little more comfortable. We're not stammering quite as much, or I should say I'm not. So anyway, very happy to be here. I also want to mention I put an ad in Craigslist the other day asking if anybody had any paranormal experiences, and I'm getting a lot of people, and they're all very, very interesting stories. So we're going to put together a Halloween show probably next week or so. And these are all local people, so it's going to be very interesting to hear. You know, you always hear about the guy in Ohio, but we're going to hear about the people in Santa Barbara who have had similar experiences. So, what else are we talking about? Let's introduce John Caltadella. He's our resident horse whisperer, so to speak. He's a ranch hand / businessman.
I like it.
Yeah,
I'm a ranch hand. Yeah, why not?
Yeah, you are. So
sure.
Anyway, he bails me out when I start to like that. He'll say something and put me right back on track. Plus, he's into Western movies, and he just saw a new Western movie, which we're going to talk about in just a second. I wanted to mention in the first show I talked about the way this podcast came about was, excuse me, I met somebody that I felt really comfortable with, and we started talking, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to write a book. So I started telling her all these really horrific stories of my past, because like I said, I've lived many lives. I've done many things, and I've done a lot of crazy things. You know, I'm sober a little under 20 years, and I've had a good business life, and I'm doing well in that. I like to write TV shows, and I try to be as creative as I can. But there was a time where I was heavily addicted to drugs, and that's the truth. And right here in Santa Barbara, and usually with drugs, you're either in jail or in the hospital or broke at a short amount of time, so it usually doesn't last very long. But in my case, I was doing well in business, and it lasted a couple of years. And I had many adventures. I mean, things that she and I were talking about and I hadn't thought about in years, and I started telling her about it. I'm like, oh my God, I mean, this is... I want to have a podcast. I don't feel embarrassed about talking about some of this stuff anymore, because the way I got sober was hearing other people's stories, and if somebody can be helped with, you know, something I say, that's great. But I'm going to tell a lot of stories that involve hookers and strippers and all that craziness that you hear from Hollywood. Because, I mean, I did all kinds of things, but today's show's not going to be that show. That show's going to be next week. This show is going to be the seriousness of what I went through and the beginnings of it all, because I don't want to glorify anything, but it is part of my story, and I will tell the story. But I do want to preface it with the seriousness of what happened to me and how grateful I am to even be sitting here right now. But anyway, we're going to get back to that right now. I want to hear about this new... I'm a big Western fan. Clint Eastwood is one of my favorite actors. I love all his shows, and I just found out this morning that John just saw a brand new... Was it on Netflix, a brand new Western?
Let's see, I think it was on Prime. Yeah, I think it's just something that they streamed. Yeah.
What was it called?
Oh, I knew there was going to be a quiz.
Well, the name of the movie, I just put you up as the business horse whisperer, and you don't know the name of the movie. But anyway, what was it about?
Well, I guess the reason why I was bringing it up is just we were just talking about, you know, Westerns are kind of making a comeback. You know, it seems like, you know, with
because you can do everything out in the field and not worry about people getting sick.
Exactly. You got, 10 people max as far as actors. But it had awesome actors in it. You know, it's basically a old style Western, you know, the old keep you guessing kind of who's the bad guy, who's the good guy, who you rooting for type of thing. I think it's kind of been a while since you've had a Western. We talked about the Clint movie, which kind of didn't exactly fill our expectations.
Well, it wasn't a Western either, and
right.
And I think they casted the wrong people, if you ask me. But what do I know? I mean, I just didn't enjoy it.
This was just a little bit more, and I hope to see more of them. You know, they had Trace Atkins was in it, big country Western star. He's got that great voice, that baritone.
Yeah.
You know,
the last comeback Western I thought was 210 to Yuma.
Yeah,
that was the last real high budget Western that they did, and that was good.
Yeah, and he had some big name actors in that one too.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah. Hopefully they're making some more of those now. I remember Three Mules for Sister Sarah. I think that was one of Clint Eastwood's movies that was with Shirley MacLaine. Three Mules, if I'm saying it right, and you need something to do, watch that movie. It is one of the best Western movies ever made. I mean, Clint is at his finest in this movie.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's good to know. We're trying to have a little bit of entertainment here for you to when you're shutting in and.
Yeah, I mean, if you need to know of a good movie that you won't know the name of, just ask me anytime. I'm available.
Yeah, if you're on the streets, they can say, "Hey, John,
Hey,
what was that movie that you saw that you don't know about?"
Yeah.
Anyway, let's get back to me. I've lived here most of my adult life. Like I said, I came down here to go to school. My brother, I grew up in Seattle, Washington, and he went to school at UCSB, and he said, "Hey Ben, you want to?" I graduated high school, and I was working at a restaurant, and he said, "Hey, you want to come down to Santa Barbara?" I'm like, why not? So I came down here, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And I lived at Francisco Torres, the two towers, they called Fantasy Towers or Blankety Blank, which you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, I stayed there. I remember the first week that I was there, there was no rules. One thing I remembered, I was like 19, I think. Everybody was drinking beer, smoking pot. Everything went. So I'm in this tower filled with beautiful women, and all the meals were downstairs. You just went in the elevator, and there was all you can eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. There's no real reason to leave the place except for school.
Sure.
Which I did. I did.
Did you do that occasionally?
Yeah, I didn't make that. I didn't have the best reputation because there was two towers, and we used to go. I lived on 6 North, and my thought was on the weekends if we go over to the other tower and go in the elevator and hit all the buttons, we're going to hit a party. And it's kind of damage control because it's in the other,
Yeah.
So we did that, and I didn't behave like I probably should have. And I'm sorry
19.
to anybody out there if I offended you. I'm sorry. I was 19 and running around, running rampant. But anyway, that led me to Isla Vista. So I had 3 roommates from FT, and we lived in Isla Vista. And again, that was fun. We were just a bunch of angry dogs running the streets, and we did pretty much everything that you do in Isla Vista. But I started running amok, and I didn't do well in school, and I decided if I got a side job, I'd be able to afford, pot, because I didn't have a lot of money back then. Nobody had any money.
Sure.
So I got a job, and school just was kind of getting in my way, and I wasn't doing well. So I decided to actually, here's what happened. My grades dropped to where I wasn't getting any more money from my dad. He was sending me a little bit of money every month, but he goes, you know what, you're done. And I'm like, all right. So I went down Hollister Avenue, got a job at a dealership as a lot boy. A lot boy is somebody who does whatever he's told. In fact, I was told by my manager, Ben, you don't have no in your vocabulary. So that's what the lot boy does, whatever he's told. Fast forward, somebody there who worked there sold drugs, sold cocaine. Now, cocaine in Seattle was something that only rock stars did because you couldn't find it. But down here, for some reason, it was everywhere. And I didn't have a lot of money, but I did buy some. And like alcoholics, sometimes there's people who don't really know, but they have a predisposition to alcohol. So if they take one drink, they physically can't stop. Mm-hmm. And I always thought, that's just nuts. I mean, who in their right mind is like that?
Yeah, it's never going to be me.
Well, with cocaine, that was me. And the reason I stopped back then was because I just didn't have any money, right? So anyway, I cleaned myself up, and I took off in business. I did real well. And it seemed like 10 years later, I got back. I thought, you know what? It'd be a good idea. Now that I have a lot of money, I'm doing real well. I think it'd be fun to take a break.
Yeah, I got my stuff together. I
can do cocaine responsibly.
Sure.
That's where my brain.
I'm an
was,
adult
right?
now.
That's right. I can do things responsibly. So I decided to do it before my day off, and I got, man, this was fun, and kind of a tough hangover, but I got back up, And I come from a family where my mom says there's nothing you can't do if you want it bad enough, which it helped me in a lot of ways in business and everything else. But when it came to trying to stop that stuff, I couldn't do it. But anyway, I ended up, it progressed from just doing it the day before my day off, just like the movies, to every day, right? And finally, work, I really did well at work. And I was in the finance industry, and they kept me there because I did well. So they looked the other way when I wouldn't come in for 2 days. But after a while, I mean, that's it. I'm thinking back my life. If I don't get 8 hours of sleep now, I can't even tie my shoes. But can you imagine not getting sleep for 2 days and then putting a suit on and going in and trying to make heads or tails out of
So are you like running amok?
So listen, this is a true story. I was with clients in my office, and I dozed off. Wow. And I kind of came to, and I looked at them, and I said, did I just fall asleep? And they're like, oh, yeah. Yeah, so I knew that there was a problem then.
Sure.
But anyway, the only reason I'm saying all this is because it snowballed into something bad really fast. And work said, hey, you're not needed anymore. So I couldn't stop. I went to something this horrific. I figured you had to spend a lot of money. You had to go to rehab. I went to cottage care. I went to rehab. Flew to Washington to a rehab place for 21 days. Now, you want to hear about embarrassing? Work was waiting for me. They said, go to this place like a car wash, clean up, and we're going to see you on Monday. And I'm like, great. And I got back on Friday. And talk about the trickiness of this disease, and it really is a disease. I went out that Saturday after my 21 days of rehab. I thought it'd be a good idea maybe just to do a little bit before Monday, and I walked into work Monday just looking like hell. And people are looking at me like, they're like, hey, oh boy. And I said, I have the flu, man. I got all those people in rehab. A lot of them were sick, and they're just looking at me like, oh man. So it was tough. It was really tough, and it was embarrassing. I couldn't get it. So this is a quick story. I dated a Hispanic girl, and she wanted to get married, and I did too at the time. But she said, you need to go to catechism class because we want to get married in the Catholic Church. So I said, all right. So I did a year of... Anyway, there's a gentleman named Father Steve, a pastor at I don't remember the name of the church. But anyway, I couldn't stop doing this stuff. So I'm going to call the Catholic Church. I'm going to do everything. So I called him up, and I made an appointment with him, and I went over there, and he remembered me, and he said, how are you? And I said, well, this is what's going on. And he looked at me, and he goes, I figured he'd have me sweep the parking lot or get involved in the church heavily, right? And I was ready to throw in the towel and do whatever he said. He goes, there's nothing I can help you with. And I'm like, what? He said, listen, I know a lot of people, a lot of families in this church, and they have a lot of people like you that are doing drugs, and they die. So if you don't stop, you're going to die. Number two, I can't help you. You need to go downtown to a 12-step program. So that man saved my life. So I went down. I ended up at an AA meeting, and I met this man that I heard speak. The magic of AA is when you're there and you hear somebody else's story, and it resonates with you. You're like, oh my God, that's like me. And anyway, I heard this gentleman speak, and I went up to him, and it was about a year of going to meetings, and I would get a month, 2 months clean, and I'd go out for the weekend, and I just couldn't do it, man. It was like it put you in such a depression. So,
what was it? Was it like I got to go out and party, or was it
it was like. So when you do it enough, you get high, right? And then you get low, and then you come back here. Well, if you do it enough, you're down here.
Right.
And it's so hard to be down here that you figure all I need to do is get my hand on a few bucks, and I could be up here in a second. And that's what it is.
You're almost just trying to get normal, so to speak. You're just
Plus, I'm a little obsessive compulsive. I've always been like that. As a kid, I ate too much candy. I got chubby, blah, blah, blah. I used to lick my hand and wipe my face in first grade. And there's a little something going on with Ben, but that's what makes Ben. That's what makes
you're human, man. We all got little kinks and quirks.
But anyway, I did it for a year, and I people are looking at me like, you're not getting it, are you? And I thought to myself, I'm the guy that just didn't get it. And then I met this man, and he told me to go to 90 and 90, which means you go to 90 meetings in 90 days, no matter what. In fact, no matter what. I had the flu one time, and he said, I don't care. Go to the meeting. People get the flu, they're going to get better. If you don't go to a meeting, you're going to die. So get to the meeting. So after the 90 and 90, I had to do, I went up to him, and I said, I just finished my 90 and 90. He goes, great, do 90 and 90 more. And I'm like, come on. So he knew me better than I knew me. So I did 90 and 90 more. So now we're talking about 6 months, right? Every single day. That means I go up to Seattle to see my family at Christmas time, and I get up early and go to somebody's house and come back before everybody wakes up to go to a meeting because I had to. And I did what I had to do because my life sucked so bad. So after my 6 months of straight meetings, I went, hey, I did my 6 months. He goes, do 90 and 90 more. And I was very upset because I was feeling good at that point. But I did 90 and 90 more, which was 9 months. So think for a minute, 9 months of a meeting every single day. So when I was done with that, I thought, if he tells me 90 and 90 again, I'm out. I had the speech ready. I was ready to go.
Right.
But the man is wise. And I went up to him and I said, I finished my 90 and 90. And he said, great. Now go get 3 commitments, which means go to 3 different meetings and say you're going to commit to making coffee or bringing donuts or whatever. So I went, that was great. And listen, that was 21 years ago. And I still call that man every day at 5 o'clock. to check in with him.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really awesome. He's a friend I can bounce stuff off of. If I have women issues, which isn't all the time, but if it's, I mean, I'm still like a seventh grader at a dance. Like, I don't know what the hell to do, and I'll call him and tell him, and he knows where I'm coming from. So it's really nice to have that as a person to be able to bounce stuff off of. But anyway, so when I get into my stories of all these crazy stories that I will get into, I just want to let everybody know, if you know of somebody that has a drug problem, which you probably do, because there's a lot of people out there, you get a hold of me. Call the station, however you want to get a hold of me, get a hold of me. And I'll do whatever I can, because I had a lot of people help me along the way. And I know for a fact, like I was saying, there's nothing I can't do. I was listening to Elton John the other day. He said the same thing. He goes, there's nothing I can't do. But when it came to stopping drugs, because I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is, but I couldn't either. So I'm willing to help anybody with anything. So if you have a problem, or you know somebody, or you're a mom or a parent or somebody that has a drug addiction, you don't understand it, call me and I'll talk to you, because a lot of it doesn't make any sense. I put a lot of people through stuff that I really wish I hadn't, but that was just part of the deal. And my mom, God bless her, just stayed with me the whole way, and she was pretty awesome. They talk about tough love. They talk about if your son's like this, kick him out and she never did. And she always, every time I called her, she would say, I love you. And she was a savior. But anyway, that's where I am now, and I don't treat it lightly. I do go to meetings once in a while. And the reason people say, why do you call your sponsor? There's a lot of reasons. When I call him, it reminds me of who I am.
Right.
I don't want to get too big and say, hey, look at me, I'm this guy. I'm not. I'm a guy that probably shouldn't be alive. That by the grace of God, I'm still here.
Yeah, as a guy that's talked to you more than once, you've got some stories where you probably shouldn't be here.
Yes, and we were talking about the other day, we had that paranormal episode, and a lot of that stuff, if I get pulled over by a policeman, I always get a ticket. I usually have fun talking with a guy, trying to talk him out, but he's like, no, and I sign it, and
you move on, right.
There was 2 years of me engulfed in this drug addiction, and I would drive my car everywhere. I was on an adventure, and I would never have my license or insurance with me, and I got pulled over all the time. And I never, ever...
I'm like
ever,
trembling just thinking about this.
3 in the morning I got pulled over. I hadn't slept in 2 days. I looked like I should have been dead. And I talked my way out of the ticket. And it's not that... It's like... What I'm trying to get at, it's like I have helpers, and for some reason they're saying, this is part of your life. You don't need the legal part. We're going to keep you from this to try to keep you alive. It was very, very interesting that I never, ever got a ticket for doing anything.
Definitely one of the lucky ones.
Yeah, no. How much time do we have?
We have about 10 minutes left.
10 minutes. So let's think back. Grab some water here. Do you have any stories or any questions? I know you have kids, and you have 2, 5, 7, and this town's filled with drugs.
It is, and you know, I've got a kid that doesn't live in the county, and she lives in one of the Southern California counties, and so that kind of scares me a little bit too. You know, now you hear a lot about, you know, when I was a kid, it was pretty much, you know, you smoked cigarettes, you smoked pot, you drank a couple beers. Pills became a big thing when I was like in high school, right? That's like, you know, not to name any, because I don't want to give any ideas, but yeah, you know, like the Vicodins and that type of stuff, you know, and so that was a huge thing. But now you've got like fentanyl, which is like the scariest crap ever, right? I mean, you know, you got a kid
people are just dropping dead on fentanyl.
Well, yeah, you got a kid that, you know, let's say you're sitting here and you're listening to this thing and you're going, hey, okay, well, yeah, my kid's 15 and he smokes pot, no big deal, right? You know, yeah, all right, no big deal. You know, is a big deal, but let's say it wasn't. How do you know what's going into that stuff? I mean, they're buying it from Johnny at school, and if, you know, let's say a girl likes this kid better than that kid, hey, Johnny at school might put a little fentanyl in there.
Well, it's interesting now because before, you know, when I was in high school, pot, if you got caught with pot, you got in a whole lot of trouble.
Right. But, do they even give you a ticket anymore, or is it even...
Well, here's the thing. If it's regulated and it's sold from dispensaries, if you're a parent... Now the responsible thing is to make your kid get it from there, and don't buy it from Johnny on the spot because he's going to have fentanyl in it.
Yeah.
So you have to go to.
Puts you in a tough spot.
Yeah, but you don't really, and you think a lot of kids smoke pot, like I did. You smoke pot to to try to just escape a little bit. So, but then you got to figure out, why do you want to escape? Normal kids don't want to escape.
Yeah, life's pretty good. I
Yeah.
mean, aside from hiccups of life and, like you got natural disasters and that might happen or things might, but life's pretty good, guys. The internet exists. You got medicine, you got a car. You could flip on YouTube at any time and be entertained. It's not exactly the 60s where, people were leaving you inside the car so they can go in the bar and get hammered. It's not exactly the same life.
Right. But as far as you and your kids, I just want to mention my mom raised us, gave us, just taught us love. I mean, the importance of it. And she was just so freaking amazing that later on when I had my issues, that was so important, so huge that I remembered the way it saved my life.
Yeah, it's nice to have a home base. You got a
So
place
when
to go
you're,
back.
when you're
Yeah.
instead of worried about your kids, I'm just saying, just be there for them no matter what, so
Definitely.
they can come to you.
Well, I mean, I think one thing that's changed, even just raising kids, since maybe you grew up and even I grew up, is when I grew up, we did everything to please our parents, right? It was, children should be seen, seen and not heard, and hey, adults are talking, keep quiet, that kind of stuff, right? Which my parents are pretty cool about all that stuff, but still, it was that era. But now it seems like people live for the kids.
Well, it's different.
It's completely
dynamic
different.
is
I mean,
different.
I know personally, like, I never thought that X amount of my, a huge percent of my income would go to my kids and programs and schooling and, stuff that you don't even think about, but stuff that, heck, I never got an opportunity
Yeah,
to do that
I'm up
stuff.
in the air about all that. I mean, graduating for people, having graduations for kids going into second grade. I'm like, are you serious?
Yeah, I don't mean that type of stuff, but hey, it's good to put your kid in a program. I remember
It's
UCSB.
good to acknowledge them and pat them
Yeah.
on the back and let them know that
But
they're
I just
doing
mean
well.
programs like UCSB used to have a robotics program. You could put a 6-year-old in a robotics program. Like, that could be huge later on in life. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I never did any robotics program. I think when I was a kid, you went to the YMCA and you worked all summer or 2 weeks or whatever it was in the canyon, digging up the canyon and chasing snakes and whatever. And at the end, you ready for this? A YMCA card, so you can come back and do more of it, right? It made no sense.
Yeah, I spent my time at the YMCA. When I was a kid, we would get on the bus and go downtown and check the action out. I mean, that was in the 70s. They had they had pimps and hookers, and I mean, they had everything down there.
The action.
And we would go, honestly, from 8 in the morning to 8 at night and go down, and you'd find some action on 5th and Pike or something like that. We'd just sit there and watch it all day and go to the Space Needle and the Seattle Center and all that stuff. But that's how I grew up.
You just don't see that anymore.
I mean, it's good that you don't.
It's good and bad. I mean, whatever happened to the old, hey, don't come back till the streetlights, come on.
No, I'm talking about as far as the pimps and hookers. That,
Yeah.
we don't need that
Yeah,
anymore.
no. We've
But
moved. We're in a different neighborhood now.
as far
probably,
as
too.
playing in front of the neighborhood, playing kick the can and playing kickball and all that until the
yeah, I mean, you
until
just
the-
don't see it anymore.
not at all.
I was in San Diego recently, and the first hour I was there, I just couldn't put my finger on what was so different about town. Aside from the mask thing being a little different down there and things
You
like
don't
that.
see kids out there playing.
You don't see anybody on the street, not just kids. You don't see
Well,
people
that's
walking.
what I'm saying. When you're talking about first, second, third graders and everybody's wrapping their arms around them and coddling them so much.
Yeah.
Is that what's going to happen when they grow up? I mean, I had so much fun riding my bike and going on adventures with my friends, and I mean that was fun. I can't imagine sitting. My brother, he sat home.
Right.
He didn't want to do anything, but I was gone.
But it's not even when you grow up, because the question is what happens when they go to school. The teacher's got 18, 17, 30 kids. They don't have
So
the
when you're in
time
fifth
to
and
sit there
sixth
do
grade, you're gonna feel entitled and say, hey, how come you're treating me like that?
Well, you
Because
feel entitled, or you probably you probably give all your attention to the one person that gives you the attention, which probably is like the welcome committee at the average bad job, right? Like the guys that just want to tell you all the bad things.
I will say that I'm smart enough to know that it could be a new business model, like Elon Musk is doing something totally different than any other CEO is doing, and it's proving to be incredibly 100 times better than it used to be.
Very
so
well
maybe
could be.
that's what's going on with the kids.
And I hope so. I
Yeah,
really
we
do.
all hope so.
No, yeah. I mean, everybody wants their kids to do better. Nobody wants them
We
to do
all
worse,
compare
obviously.
things to our own memories, right? And if it's not like us, it's wrong. But
Right.
it's not necessarily, but we'll see what happens. I mean, I think it's wrong when I say I had fun running around and getting on my bike and going, on my adventures and coming back at nighttime. And man, we had fun.
We also came from an era of right and wrong.
Well, it was safer to be out running around. And can you imagine a pandemic when we were kids?
Yeah, as far as we know. I mean, now we have the internet. We find out about all these like goofy murders and families that keep their kids like pets under the house, and just these wacky things that
I don't need to know about
well,
that. When I was in
just
high
making
school,
stuff
there was a
up,
show
but-
called Mechanized Death, and that was something that all the kids were watching, and I don't know how they were watching it. But it was about mechanized death. It was about people who worked with machines and they get their arm ripped off and all that, and I refused to see that.
I don't need any of that.
That's why the computer stuff can't be all that good, because it's what you put in your child's mind. As we talked about the other day, your child is a computer, and the more information you put in, it stays in there.
Right. Well, here's the scary thought. You give your phone to your kid, and you're in line at the store, and you're like, here, watch some YouTube, right? Well,
And
now
then you look down, and what does he watch?
well, yeah, because your phone thinks it's an adult male, right? So, and what have you been looking at, and whatever. Well, about 7 or 8 tapes into it, who knows what's going to pop up?
Or what he's looking for.
Or, just kids click, they can't, like I've got a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old, he's not sitting there, reading through YouTube. He's just clicking on the cool picture or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, as a kid, I grew up with, I had to do a book report. I had to get the Britannia Encyclopedia, and I had to pull down, look up the Blue Jay and write about the Blue Jay and put it back on the shelf. That's what I had to do.
Yeah.
So it's funny, the other day, I gave something to a friend of mine's kid, and he was polite enough to write me a thank you card, but I got to admit, he's like a junior in high school, and it looked like a 4-year-old wrote it. They don't
get
teach
to
writing
write
anymore.
Yeah, they don't get to write. Yeah, they don't get to practice it.
Yeah, do you teach your kids how to write?
Yeah, I mean, because they're just at that age where they're practicing letters and whatnot. But I mean,
that blew me away.
But every adult's great at their signature. Ask them to write a paragraph. It's the same thing. We just don't write anymore. Everything's typing either with our thumbs at 60 miles an hour or
Well,
with
the
our
fact
fingers.
that he wrote me a thank you card, I think, is pretty good.
That is awesome.
You don't see that anymore. And
Not
I
as
shouldn't
much.
bag on it, but I just noticed the writing, and I was like, you may want to sit there and practice your ABCs.
Yeah, but when's that kid ever going to use penmanship
Well,
ever
next
again?
time he writes a thank you card.
Which may not be ever now.
That's right.
Jeez.
2 more minutes. There's one thing I wanted. We talked about drug addiction and whatnot, and I want to quickly mention. 8 months ago, I went on a motorbike trip up in the mountains with Hans, and I crashed and I hurt my back really bad.
Yeah.
And they gave me Percocets, and I took those as prescribed until I decided I needed more. But anyway, I was at my 3rd month, and I thought I was going down the drain. My back was hurting, and I really thought my life was over. And I read something online that said, "Do not take these pills more than 2 weeks."
Whoa.
So yeah. So anyway, I hate to say, but having gotten over the cocaine helped me do this, because it was tough, but I knew I could do it because I'd already gone through it. So if you have a problem with Percocet or something like that, and everybody says, "Oh, you'll never kick it," of course you can.
Yeah,
So
the whole
I'm throwing
you
some
never
hope out
thing.
there. Yeah, because it was tough, man. It was 3 in the morning. I drove to the emergency room. I said, "You got to help me. You got to." So I did a few of those, but then I totally got off it. My doctor said, you really need to wean off it because it's dangerous to do it otherwise. But happy to say that, yeah, I got rid of all that stuff, and man, that scared the hell out of me.
Yeah, and just happy you realized it and were able to get there.
The more I read about it, the more people are saying that you can't get off of it. There was some other Klonopin or some other drug where they said, forget it. If you're on it, good luck. Just make sure you can get a lot of it, because you're not getting off it. It just saturates your tissues, and it makes your body. It becomes food. It becomes an element to survive. But
Yeah,
anyway,
it just reprograms you.
get off it. It's okay. Again, it's okay to get a hold of me. If you see me on the street, ask me, because I've been there and I've done that. And now I have a life that's beyond your wildest dreams, as far as what I'm doing with writing and getting involved with local TV shows and the people I'm meeting, and I'm doing my show right here with John here. It's hopefully I can do something for somebody else. Our next show is going to be about the things that I did when I was on drugs and here in town, in the hotels and all the people and all the crazy adventures. So until then, we're out of time right now, but stick around. We're also going to have a really good paranormal Halloween show that's coming up. John, good luck with your kids and,
appreciate
your Western movies, and thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me.
We'll have him again next week. Thank you all. I'm Ben Ferguson. We'll see you next time.